What's up everyone, Michael aka Spirit Shot here with an impressions review for Sonic Lost World, the PC version. This is technically the Wii U version, it's just ported over to PC, and it actually is quite a good port. I actually like the port quite a bit. There are some caveats that we'll talk about later, but anyways, let's go ahead and go into it. So here we are. It actually has full mouse support for the menus. However, for some reason on my control pad, my D-pad doesn't work. So I don't know what's with that. I have to use the joystick, so I just end up using the mouse for the menus. Hopefully you can see it. It's kind of small, and the things don't highlight when you go over them, so that's kind of annoying. But anyways, we're going to look at the options first. Now in here you got video, so you got your resolution stuff, because there's not a lot of options, by the way. I should probably mention that before we go through this. So you got resolution, you got full screen, which is actually going to be borderless full screen. It doesn't have dedicated for some reason. It seems to be popular in ports these days. And then you have depth of field, and then you have grass, which is actually going to spawn grass that sways left and right. We'll see that in one of the levels that I pick, I'm sure. And then you have shadows, and that's pretty much it for the video options. Now, I do want to mention that the game natively runs at 60. However, they've patched the game so that you can add in an argument or argument to the launch options to make it so it runs at 30 if you do have problems running this game, which it's not a very heavy game, so as long as you have a medium to high-end PC, you're going to run this game amazingly. Like, I've never dropped below 60 in this game so far, and I've even run stuff like video rendering in the background. It's done perfectly fine, and I don't have that great of a system. I'm running a GTX 660 only, and so, yeah, and the game does seem to offload on your GPU a lot, so I guess if you're using an integrated graphics card, might not be great, but we'll talk more about performance later. I just kind of spoiled all of that section for us right there. Anyway, so here's the sound options. You got music voice, which is awesome. I normally turn this off when I'm replaying levels because the bosses actually talk during the levels. We'll see that in the levels I'm going to play. And then you got sound effects. Quite nice to have that. I would like more language options, actually. So there are currently mods that you can use. They're unofficial mods that you can use to get the other voice files in the game. However, I would like to have it in the game, you know, as an actual option. But right now, this plays in English. I believe it depends on the region you're playing. Either that or it's in English or Japanese. I don't know. And then here's for input. This is really nice if you're using a keyboard and mouse and don't have a controller to play, even though I highly recommend getting a controller to play because this is a platformer. Obviously, it's going to be better. So anyways, you can actually rebind everything, which is quite nice. However, you can't double bind. So this up and down, if I go ahead and click on down and hit the up arrow key, it won't bind it because there's already up bound to up. So can't do that, but everything is rebindable, which is quite nice. Controller cannot be rebound, which sucks, but that's kind of to be expected. It doesn't happen very often that we can rebind controller. Would be nice to see, but yeah, just hope that whatever controller you're using end up working natively, or else you're gonna have to find a workaround like third-party wise. And that's it for the options menu. So yeah, that was quick. Anyways, let's go ahead and go into my game. Not a lot of options. I would have liked to see more in-game options to edit, like, you know, more video stuff, just anti-alias settings even. I mean, you can override it with the NVIDIA control panel or the, I believe it's Catalyst driver for AMD, but yeah, you can override the stuff and it does work, as in I have done it with this game. There's no reason to. I think it automatically runs, I think 2 times. It's either 2 times or 4 times MSAA, so it looks nice regardless, but it would be nice to be able to actually, you know, have that in game. So here we are in the world map to where you actually select your level. We get this kind of hexagonal thing. And so this is actually how you go between levels. You can also, I think it's right trigger? Yeah, so you can actually skip between the levels as well. And then you also have this big map thing, which I just hit the back button for. Now, as you can see, I've almost beaten the game. I planned to do this video a long time ago, but I kind of just kept putting it off. And then I've kind of played the game a lot more than I intended to. So I'm almost at the end of the game. But that also gives me better impressions of it, I guess. So we're going to go ahead and go to the first area. Now, one thing that's really nice about this area is you can't click on the map. Like, I believe on the Wii U version, you can actually tap on the control pad or whatever the hell they call it to actually navigate. You can't do that on here. However, these buttons and stuff are actually what you would have seen on the Wii U gamepad. You can actually use the mouse completely for these, and so that's actually quite nice. So the menus and stuff like that. And before we go into a level, you can actually go on missions, which is going to be the bottom left, or you can use the D-pad on a controller. And it actually shows you missions, which these are little tiny objectives, like side objectives. You complete these, and they give you items, and these items can be used whenever you're in a mission at any time. So I always forget them, so I'm always full on them, and I just never use them. But we're going to use one in this video just to show it off. We'll use it right when we get into the level. Anyways, we're going to do this level because it allows me to talk about a lot of mechanics, and it allows me to talk about the bosses, which is actually going to be where my first complaint lies with this game. But anyways, here we are in the Sonic game. Yeah, so a lot of people have actually said about this game, because the game's been out for quite a while on the Wii U and 3DS, and I do want to mention before I continue that the 3DS version is actually a completely different version than this. The story is the same. but the actual levels and the bosses are actually almost completely different. They kind of reuse the bosses, but most of the levels are actually different. So if you're looking for a different experience, then the 3DS version will actually be basically more levels of this. However, the 3DS version is also not nearly as good as this one. Like, I had the 3DS version, I was actually disappointed with it. However, I am super enjoying this one. So as you heard there in the background, hopefully if the audio is working, you heard the boss actually talking about Sonic and beating his spiny little blue butt, because obviously that's a thing that he does. This game is very kind of charming in its story and the way it's presented, but it's a Sonic game. Anyways, let's talk about mechanics. So you just saw I was in the 3D and I was actually running around like normal, and now we're in 2D. So they actually went with the mechanics that I believe started in Sonic Colors, I believe is when that actually began. But it's also something that I loved about Sonic Generations is that actually they keep the running in 2D and 3D. So they do have the 2D things. Now we've seen a lot of mechanics while I'm just kind of bantering right now, but you actually see that I have the normal walk, which is actually quite interesting. Whoa. Let me, I screwed that up. Anyways, we got the normal walk. And then also, you have a run button. So Sonic doesn't always run in this game, which is actually quite interesting. And this game actually focuses more on the precision aspects. And it reminds me a lot of the Genesis days, to where you didn't always want to go fast, which a lot of people always looked at the old Sonic games and been like, oh yeah, it's all about going fast, and you just kind of run into a wall. But they were always about precision more than anything. And this game really kind of hones that in with the fact of that they actually don't have you running all the time, and you won't be running all the time, because sometimes you actually need to not run to get certain things to work. As in, there's actually a level where you're on ice, and if you're running, you'll do a different jump than if you're walking. So actually switching between the two will actually become quite an interesting mechanic. And so this game actually focuses a lot more on precision, which is going to be the main difference between this and most Sonic games. They've also added in other abilities as well, like you saw me wall jump a little bit there, and if you... just a lot of things. Now that's an annoying thing. I didn't kill that enemy right, so he kind of left some baddies. But you can also wall run, so if I run into this wall, you can actually see he runs. You can also wall jump, if I would have done it correctly. Talk about that in a minute. But yeah, you can actually... oh, there's a spring there. Dang it, I'm trying to talk about something. So yeah, if you're running on the wall, you can actually jump backwards. Now, I don't know if it's going to let me do it on this wall. There it goes. Yeah, so you can actually wall jump and stuff like that. You can also grab one of the ledges. You have a double jump, as you see here. If you don't have something to homing attack on, you'll just do a double jump. Now, if you double jump, you can't actually homing attack afterwards. So if I'm doing this, I can't actually use a homing attack afterwards. Or I can. Okay, maybe I can. Never mind. I take that back. I lied. And now here is the color abilities. Now, people who didn't play Sonic Colors or the Wisp level of Sonic Generations wouldn't actually know what the color abilities are, and I just completed a mission. It's quite sweet. But this actually allows you to use special abilities through these little alien things. Why they're in this game, I have absolutely no clue, but they introduce a lot of different mechanics with it. So that one was actually an asteroid field, to where it actually consumes objects around you and turns them into debris, I guess. And then also there's other ones, like there's one that turns you into a bird, there's one that turns you into a drill. And the ones on the 3DS version and the ones on the Wii U version are actually different. And so if you played the other version, then, you know, you're actually going to see different abilities, which is quite interesting. I do recommend this version over the 3DS version, though, because the 3DS version is not nearly as polished and it doesn't feel as good. Now, one thing I want to talk about the feeling while we're actually chasing the boss right now. This is actually a little kind of scripted segment. And we're going to be talking about the bosses quite soon, quite frankly. This video is going quite quick. One thing about the physics and the way the game feels is that people that play a lot of Sonic games, like I love the Sonic games and I've played pretty much every single one that's ever existed, even the bad ones, unfortunately. But basically, this one feels a lot more grounded and heavy. It feels a lot more like a standard platformer instead of the floaty but quick action that was the Sonic Generations and stuff like that. Now, as you see here, I'm actually fighting a boss. Now, one thing I want to mention before we actually continue is you can actually lock onto targets multiple times and multiple targets at the same time. So I'm actually locking onto him multiple times, and it's going to end up doing more damage when I get to 3 targets. Although I don't think he has enough health left for me to do that, so it won't let me do that now. You can actually lock onto multiple targets. So you just saw the first boss of the game. Not too interesting, and people would automatically write off like, oh, well, that's the first boss, so it's obviously simple. Unfortunately, a lot of the bosses end up being that way, as in the bosses end up focusing on one mechanic and you just kind of repeat that mechanic. So the bosses actually aren't very interesting. Now I got an item and I actually forgot to use one of these items like I said I was going to, so we're going to go ahead and replace one with an extra life. All right, we're going to leave that one there. But that's actually a problem with the way the bosses are handled, as in the bosses focus on one mechanic and you just repeat that mechanic 3 or 4 times, and then that's kind of how it goes. Now here you will actually see I'm able to lock on multiple targets. And one thing that's kind of interesting is if there's a line of enemies, it can actually automatically follow that line of enemies when you're targeting. And so I'm able to just target onto these 4 enemies or whatever, and it'll just kill everything at once, which is actually quite nice, and it makes it a lot more smooth to take out a lot of enemies. So I went ahead and just jumped to the next level just to kind of show this one. This is an awesome level. I actually love this level. This is one of my favorite levels on here. It's also the first level I got all the red stars on, which is actually quite nice. We're going to go ahead and go up here. I believe this is the one where the bird's at. Anyway, so what's your objective of the game? Because, you know, I'll talk about the story in a little bit, because the story is not too great. As in, I'll just go ahead and talk about it now. The story is basically these things, I think they're called the Zeti or something like that, kind of been awakened by Eggman, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, Eggman screwed up, and Sonic screwed up, and everyone screwed up, and now the Zeti are trying to kill everyone. And, oh, I didn't get to that right. And then basically, they're trying to take over and destroy the world, and then you're Sonic and trying to save everything. So that's kind of standard plot for Sonic games. It's not that in depth, but it's interesting nonetheless. They gave each of the Zeti, which are the kind of colorful characters. If you ever look up this game, you'll see them, and one of the bosses was those characters. But each of those Zeti kind of have their own personality and their own mechanics kind of tied to that personality, which is actually quite interesting. Oops, did not mean to do that. So here we see more of the wall running. So, yeah, so what's your goal of the game? So basically, you're going through the levels and you're trying to actually save animals? Like, aside from just getting to the end of the level, which is obviously your goal in any platformer, really, you're basically just trying to save the animals, and there's actually a mechanic to where you actually use them to unlock levels. So there's a point to destroying enemies and such as that, as in you get a little, you know, save counter, which is quite interesting. I think this is the first game that's actually introduced, like, an actual purpose gameplay-wise for that, besides, I think, the Adventure series, which actually used it for the Chao Garden, which some people actually just completely ignored, which is unfortunate, because that was awesome, but yeah. Now, in each level, there are actually these red rings as well, which I am terrible at getting them, by the way. I'm terrible at all the wall jumping abilities. Now, if I do it correctly, there we go, I can run on the ceiling and stuff like that. Now, one thing that's actually really interesting about this game is the amount of mechanics it actually introduces. As in, there's tons of mechanics. There's a kick mechanic as well. So when you do a homing attack, you can actually kick them instead of actually just homing attack them. You can actually kick them, and you have to use that to kill certain enemies. And you can use it to kill lines of enemies and stuff like that to actually end up clearing things quicker. So just, this game has so many in-depth mechanics and so many routes in each kind of level, which is kind of to be expected from a Sonic game. Oh, I missed that power-up. Whoops. But each Sonic game has been really good at introducing a new mechanic for each level, and this is definitely no exception, and each level kind of plays differently, which is why a lot of people are going to have some that they love and then some that they just absolutely hate, because they're not all the same. And so this one kind of focuses on running around, clearing the worms, and there is a bird power-up, but I missed it. I missed the power-up, so I couldn't exactly keep it. Now, one thing with that, though, is this game doesn't really do a good job of tutorializing anything in the game. And so there's going to be a lot of cases to where it expects you to have a certain number of buttons, and so if you're not using a standard controller or a standard setup, or if you don't pay attention to the key bindings, then you might actually have a problem with doing stuff, because this game has basically no tutorials. It does the whole classic, oh, we'll just teach you while you're playing the level, which is great. However, if you're playing with a keyboard and mouse, you're going to run into a situation to where you kind of don't know what button you're supposed to push, which might run you into some problems. So anyways, we are going up and up. So this level, like I was saying, oh, I fell. This level is really easy to mess up. I just played this level like not even 20 minutes ago, and I just did perfect on it. And I was like, ah, this is going to be perfect. I can show off all my skill, and I'm just messing up constantly. But yeah, so this one actually focuses on worms and stuff like that. So now we have it basically infinitely scrolling up. Now, if one of these worms actually grabs me, it's going to instantly kill me. So if I run up here, I'm going to go ahead and get eaten by a worm. Goodbye. Try again. This game throws lives at you like crazy though, so that's not really a problem. You can actually die a ton. However, I have actually gotten a game over in this game, which was quite unfortunate. This is probably one of the first Sonic games in a long time I've actually gotten a game over in, which is super strange. I don't know if I wanted to go up here or not, but we're going to wall jump up here. And then there's also these bells, which actually give you red rings. I'm not going to make it, am I? Oh. Whatever. If you complete the bell chain, it'll actually give you a red ring. Now, one thing that's interesting about the red rings is actually a sad fact. They didn't introduce any kind of special stages into this game. Instead, what they did is they made it so the red rings is actually how you get Chaos Emeralds. And then obviously you unlock, you know, Supersonic after you get all those. But I was actually quite disappointed that they didn't end up introducing special stages. So the DS version does have special stages, which is actually quite nice, but this version does not, unfortunately. Which kind of sucks. Now here we're actually going to see a mechanic to where I actually get the bell for one. But there's also a lot of things in this game that will slow you down. And so like the sand, there's no harm to actually walking on the sand, but it is going to slow you down. And one thing I kind of really like about this game is since it's set up more like a classic kind of platformer, and just Sonic games in general have always been this way, but basically it's going to be a super awesome game for more advanced kind of speedrunners because there's a lot of different ways you can actually clear the levels. And the different levels actually have tons and tons of pathways. Some are going to be faster, some are going to be easier, some are going to be harder, some are going to give you different bonuses, some of them need to be taken for red rings, so on and so forth. And now we got to the end of the level. So there you see on the bottom right my actual animal counter, and that's actually going to be used to unlock levels. So if I go on to one more level, I want to scan over to my last level that I'm on right now, just so I can show you guys this. But basically, if I go over here, oh, I actually already unlocked it. Basically, to unlock new levels, you need to have a certain amount of animals saved. And so basically, sometimes you can just replay levels. So I have so many because I've actually replayed levels and gotten a lot of red rings so that I can unlock the Chaos Emeralds. So if I go to Windy Hill Zone, you can see right here, I've unlocked 3 of them. I'm not quite there. I kind of wanted to unlock Supersonic really hard, but some of them are actually really hard to find. Now, one thing I have realized with the levels is that some of them are really, really easy and really, really short, and other ones are really, really long and really, really difficult. And so the pacing is a little strange, as in you might run into difficulty spike, and that actually just comes into the introduction of different kind of mechanics. Some people are going to be good at some mechanics, some people are going to be bad at mechanics. Like there's one to where I absolutely hate it. You're basically Sonic, but you're put into a snowball, and I'm just terrible at those types of levels, and so I died like 100 times, and that's actually where my first game over ever happened. Actually, my first and only game over actually happened, because after that I was like, I'm going to get some lives, because, you know, that's obviously smart. Now, this is actually a level based entirely on grinding, which is actually pretty cool. I like it. This is actually one of my favorite levels just visually, which actually brings me into the graphics and performance and stuff like that. So, the graphics. The graphics actually look pretty dang good. Like, it does that thing that the Wii U basically always has done, to where all of those types of games, because the limited hardware, they focus a lot on lighting. And we definitely saw what lighting can do in Sonic Generations. Like, Sonic Generations is a really good looking game because it focused mostly on the lighting. And this game does that as well. And I think it has sort of a less appealing visual style than Sonic Generations, because Sonic Generations was the prettiest. Oops, I didn't jump over far enough. My bad. But the thing is, like, Sonic Generations had a really great lighting engine, and it was built to run on more powerful hardware, whereas this one was built on the Wii U. So the lighting's not as good, and some of the effects aren't as visually appealing, as in a lot of them are sprite-based. As you can see, Sonic's grinding is sprite-based, and you'll see a lot of them. The giant worms were also sprite-based, and they do a lot of those small things to kind of save on performance because it was a console game. But the game still looks gorgeous in the way that they designed it, and the sound effects are actually really, really good as well. And there's a lot of nods to the older Sonic games as well, just in everything, in the animations and stuff. And so, like, getting smashed, it does the old dung noise and the old kind of animation that they had that for the old Sonic games, which was actually quite nice. And overall, this game actually reminds me a lot of, like, Sonic 3 and stuff like that. Maybe not directly in mechanics, but in the approach that they went to designing the levels, as in they focus a lot on different mechanics in different sections, and they did that in the older games. However, this one, they took it to an all new, like, level, and it's something that I wish they would have done more in Sonic Generations, and I'm really glad that they decided to introduce it into this game. Now, one thing I will say is it's not quite as fast, but one thing that is kind of nice about this game is it runs perfectly on my system and on a lot of people's system. Now, if you're running on low-end hardware, you might have some issues, and there have been some reported issues with frame rate being an issue, as in the game is tied to frame rate, as in a lot of the logic, the timing, a lot of the animations and physics and stuff like that are all tied to frame rate. And so if you don't run it well enough, you might have some issues with playing the game. So if your hardware is not up to speed, you might have some issues. And this is going to be really, really low-end hardware because this game runs beautifully. Oh man, I wish that level was longer because it's just so beautiful. I don't know why, but I love water levels. This game doesn't actually have water levels. Like that's the water level, actually. There's a water section in other levels, but yeah. Anyways, let's go ahead and find one more level. We'll go ahead and talk about the final stuff afterwards. So yeah, visually it runs great, but if you do have lower end hardware, you might have a few issues with getting it to work properly, which is unfortunate. There is a lot of patches that they've done to make the performance even better. Somehow, I don't know how they've done it because I've been running this game constantly at 60. But yeah, also, did I talk about the wall running? There's wall running and stuff in this game. Oh. Except I messed it up there. Go jump right. I'm trying to remember how to do it, and I'm just completely screwing it up. Basically, if you run into a wall, you can actually jump left and right. They don't use it in this game very often, but it is a thing that you can do. But yeah, so performance-wise, it's pretty dang good. Oh, there was a red ring I missed. Now, one thing that does kind of suck is it won't go above 60. And so I know in the future, I know 60 is standard right now, but I know in the future it's going to be something that's not exactly preferred, but 60 is just good enough. So I guess that's kind of what I got to say about this game. I super love it. And so what are my conclusions? Basically, if you're a Sonic fan, there's a chance that you might not like the game as much as other Sonic games because ultimately it's not all about speed. It's not all about basically what the Sonic games were. However, in essence, it is a Sonic game. As in, a lot of people have tried to say, oh, it's not a Sonic... I just died, dang it. A lot of people have tried to say, oh, this isn't a real Sonic game and stuff like that, and I'd actually argue the opposite, as in, it's just a different Sonic game. It's still got a lot of interesting mechanics and stuff that you wouldn't see in other platformers, and it really kind of shows off as just a really great platformer. So even if you're not a Sonic fan and you're just somebody who likes platformers, this is like a super good platformer. Now, there are a few issues, like some of the physics takes a while to get used to. Using the run button and stuff like that takes a long time to get used to. And learning some of the mechanics right off the bat, although it's nice that it doesn't hold your hand throughout the entire thing, like some platformers have in the past, but it's also kind of annoying that it also doesn't tell you how to use the mechanics right away. And so you kind of have to guess how to use things, which can lead to some issues on learning. And if you're not somebody who actually plays a lot of games, you might actually find this game rather difficult. Because this is one of the, I don't want to say one of the more difficult Sonic games, it's just a difficult platformer in some sections. And right here is actually a good example of that mechanic stuff. I didn't actually know that you could use the kick attack because there's no tutorial in this game. So I actually didn't know you could use a kick attack, but you have to use the kick attack to actually kill these spiders. Now I went up to here and just kept homing attacking them, and then they just spun around and hurt me. And there's several enemies that will do that, but you actually have to kick them. So you can thank me later when you actually play this game, if you play this game, that, you know, you actually know about the kick mechanic. You just jump and hit the X button and it'll actually do that. You also have the ground pound. See, there's just so many mechanics that I just can't cover them all. I can't remember them all because I just use them whenever I need to use them. Yeah, we can actually wall run right here, so we're going to do that. You can also speed up to kind of keep your distance going. And then I screwed it up, obviously, because I'm recording. I can't play perfectly while recording. That's impossible. But yeah, so basically, if you just want a really, really solid platformer, this is a great pick. As in, this game is just, it's really, really, really awesome. I do wish they would use a few more, like a few mechanics that they use one time, a few more times. Like the snowball thing that I was talking about, I could pass without that. But that grinding level that had the gates and stuff like that, that would be really awesome to see, like a series of levels like that. And it's just, I just wish there was more, which actually probably says a lot about this game. I super enjoy it. And I mean, I am a huge Sonic fan, so there's kind of, I'm always going to probably like it a little bit, but this is one of those games that I just recommend anybody who likes a platformer, play it. Like, it is really, really good. And the PC port of it is quite amazing. Unless you're on low-end hardware, then you might have a little bit of issues. But yeah, anyways, this has been Michael, aka Spirit Shard, with Sonic Lost World on PC. Quite enjoying it. I don't recommend the 3DS version. The 3DS version is not nearly as good as this version. But yeah, it's just a really, really good game. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You know, I'm always doing videos like this, and if there's any games you want to see me try and check out, then, you know, send that my way, because I'm always trying to check out new games. I'm always trying to get more stuff going and stuff like that, and this level is really cool too. Just so many cool levels. Each level also is visually different as well, so you don't feel like you're going through the same level over and over again. So yeah, and this is a casino level, which is a great nod. But anyways, I'm gonna end the video here, so thanks for watching. This has been an awesome experience. I love this game, and I'm gonna keep playing this forever and ever. I'm probably gonna play this one as much as I play Generations, which is way too much. So yeah, huge recommendation for me. Definitely one of the best games I've played in a long time. So peace out. See you guys in the next video. Oh yeah, you can roll around too. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. Oh god.